Okay, so today is episode 2 of my little Druid anti-spell deck, right? I think, at least, last time I just kind of made it, and then I only played a couple games with it, so we were flexing the Cthulhu one. So the main thing I don't like about the Cthulhu Hero Portrait is that it's the 3D one, obviously. Actually, I don't know if there's another one. There probably was. But why they choose to make him a Druid, too, is a little bit weird. Like, you can kind of extrapolate that he has to do with bugs and stuff, but I don't know. Like, all the old gods have to do with bugs. Like, the Nerubians are bugs for Yogg, whatever, in Yogg's area, and all that kind of stuff, so it doesn't have a whole lot of sense to it. But, or by that logic, the Lich King should be a Druid because he controls some Nerubians at various points, whatever. He controls those gargoyles. Like, wow, this makes him like associated with Beast. But no, it's like I don't like his voice. It doesn't match even the epicness of the card one that you play, or obviously the more whispery voice. He sounds kind of too like he's either trying too hard, or I think I've said that about some of the other old gods too, like they're trying too hard to sound cool or sound evil instead of just naturally being that. So that I have a little bit of issue with. And some of the cards were missing in there, like Lotheb and stuff. So it turns out that today I did not make up for my Saturday format missed yesterday. Basically on Saturday I always do something like I've never played before or whatever. So I was going to do like some, I don't know, some weird JRPG thing or some other Enshrouded. So I thought, oh, maybe I do it today if I had time, because I've missed the last 2 weeks. The week before I just didn't have time, and then this week I was preoccupied with playing chess instead. So that feels kind of stupid, but I guess I'll save it for next week. And then it feels kind of like a shame too, just in general, for that format. Like I'll buy a $60 game, like the Avatar game or something, right? Just to try it and just to play it once, but then I won't actually do anything with it after that. I guess the one way where that would actually make sense is if you died, because if it's like a first playthrough permadeath, then you'll actually die in the run and then you have to end it, but that's not usually what's been happening. So I'll try to fill in some of the holes of some of these other cards that are missing. Like you certainly need Lotheb, and we can probably look at the twist mode too, which might be out now. But basically the whole idea is that you're able to you're basically able to do it in such a way that, like, let's try to understand. This is a really old school deck that I used maybe as far back as you could, and the whole idea is it takes Druid to another level where you're able to like, you might question, why do some of these classes I choose to use the anti-spell stuff with them? Because most of the anti-spell cards are neutral in the first place anyway, right? Like a lot of the ones from Galakron or whatever, Fairy Dragon and stuff. The reason is for Mage, because you have like Counterspell and stuff like that kind of, you know, plays into the idea that you're kind of trying to counter spells and control that aspect of the game. So Druids don't really have too many cards like that, or really any cards like that really stop people from playing spells. But you do have the ability to play the AoE buffs. So that was the whole precept of why I like doing it as Druid so much, because it's like, oh, haha, you can't target my minions, but I can, even though I still can't. It's like, you know, you're giving all these AoE buff stuff to things that can't be targeted in the first place, so it makes them even harder to get rid of than they otherwise would normally be. Now, this wasn't good even at the time that I would do it years ago, but it's going to be even worse now. Or the way that it becomes worse isn't even that, oh, it's not competitive and you're not going to beat other people. It's that it's not even good in and of itself. Like, there's other better ways probably to go about the same thing. Like Lorthamar, for example, does this like 10 times better. I was making fun of this card. Like, how is this a valid thing that exists? Like, okay, so you get +4/+4. The only better thing is that it gives it to stuff on the field, but you're getting Lorthamar to double them, which, again, I don't know what +4 really means in that context. Like, anything you get is going to get at least +4, unless it's weaker than that to begin with, which then it's just going to be garbage. So I kind of wanted to do, like, we're missing Lotheb, we're missing the Trog. We're actually missing a lot for this one. And it would only make sense then to do the Mage one in the same context. I don't know why it feels like I have so little dust. That should be our big project for today. And you could, oh, this was actually working out in the twist mode. I thought I didn't get the chance to see it last time, but it works out here because of the simple fact that you're able to use a lot of these anti-spell cards still. So it's actually pretty fun. So maybe I should actually just stick with this, but I have to at some point decide. I don't have enough like resources to actually craft stuff though. That's the problem. Maybe we'll enjoy the twist mode a little bit this time, and then we'll try to do it next time. Usually I have like a surplus of gold where I can just buy like a ton of packs and make up for it that way, or just destroy other parts of my collection. Yeah, this is almost like you could RP in an old god mechanic sense. Like, oh, the old gods are beyond your puny magic of these mortal creatures. So yeah, that's gonna do it. Imagine not getting like a legendary or something from that, because I think I typically do. Or yeah, this will definitely give me enough. So I could make, and it doesn't matter whether I can use them in the twist mod or not. Although, you know, like I'm sure you probably can't use Loatheb or something, but you would have Loatheb and you would have the Trogs, if nothing else, right? I think we have all the anti-spell hero power type things. So none of those cards even appeared in the thing. So all these other classes I don't really even care about. The next ones that we're probably going to do are like Mage, Shaman, and Mage, Shaman, Paladin are probably the last three. And then we can try to figure out Death Knight, Demon Hunter, and Rogue, and whatever. Because like we started this in a way that we're trying to like give like a last love to each, what do you call it? Like each class in some way, to say like, we'll go through every class in the game, but not with a meta current deck or some, you know, really old school classic deck. It'll be something in between, or it was some sort of gimmick fun thing that I did myself, just whichever one I like the most, right? Like my favorite deck of all time with each class that we're going through in order. So for the Priest and the Rogue, it's almost invalid because I never really played as them in the first place. So I was just doing the underplayed class round robin, like you start with Priest, and I skipped Rogue actually because they vanished, I guess. I thought I had done it, but I guess I didn't even do it at all. We started with like Priest, Rogue, then we did Warrior, Warlock, Renounced Darkness, Explorer, Goro, Zinazari, all that kind of stuff. Then we did Whizbang just kind of as a in-between one. Then we did like Harnasa / just stuff to do with Rexar and sort of trying to make the most fun hunter deck that I could. Not that there really is one that stands out quite as much as the other ones. Some cards are just so golden for it, like Renounced Darkness, Zinazari are just too perfect because they completely are transformative. And so what we have to do here is we have to, these were all those budget meta decks that I made when I was like kind of salty because I failed my whole Death Knight completionist challenge where like I'm supposed to collect every Death Knight hero in the game, and because I failed to in the Brawliseum, then I deleted my whole collection, and then I said, you know, okay fine, for once I'll actually use the dust that I get back from that to make actual meta decks. So I made like 3 different ones. The Priest one was kind of expensive, but the Demon Hunter and the Death Knight one were only like 2k each, or like 4k each, for like supposedly Legend caliber decks, which I didn't actually play enough to even try to do that. But yeah, we have most of the parts already, and it's not like it's that good of a deck to begin with. Or what you could do is you could fluff it up a little bit with a lot of you know, just good modern cards, period. I kind of feel bad for doing this, but you can see I was even clowning myself for doing it, both because I failed that, but also because, I mean, to be fair, that is kind of a bullshit challenge. Like, try to get 12 wins in the Brawliseum in only 3 tries, and I don't mean 3 tries as in add the totals together. I mean in 1 try. Like, you get 3 chances, but you have to win 12 within 1 run, which is utterly ridiculous. Like, it could happen to somebody, but even people who do it probably do it like 100 times before they get it. It's just not something that happens normally. So because this deck was so cheap, though, it's not going to give me that much back in return. And I'll double check whether I can use these in Twist or not. But that is kind of a fun combination. See, like I'm using a shitty old school deck, so rather than get my ass beat in the current format or wild format with it, why not get my ass beat in the Twist format, which people will still be metagaming. Okay, this we obviously skip, just because they're... Although a lot of these I might still not use, but... We don't even have Malfurion, though. Like, we're really understaffed for this. So almost a Twist is a good excuse to just say, you know, oh, haha, we're not going to make a lot of these cards just because I can't afford them with my dust or whatever. Not because, whatever. Like, we're doing it because of the Twist mode, not because we can't afford it. So I think Loatheb is the most important one to have here. And then you need, like, both of the Trogs. There's like a 3/5 Trog that punishes you for playing spells. Now, this isn't the one that has, let me double check. No. I have some of these split just because my collection is like, I have one cosmetic on here, one cosmetic on there, so it kind of fucks me up. It gets very confusing. In other words, if I had just had like one dedicated thing, I would have probably had every card in the history of the game by now. Or if I hadn't constantly disenchanted them just to make all these stupid things over and over. Not even to make them, but then to get bored of them, then stop playing them for a while, then remake them all over again. And every time you do, you're shrinking your dust by like 75%, which is so stupid. The Paladin we definitely have to get around to at some point. Right, Jess. That'll be probably our favorite deck in history. Choice for that one would be the maybe the Exodia Paladin or something like that. That's the only one I can think of really playing any meaningful amount. I don't really remember. I mean, I remember playing them a lot in Arena. They have a good history of always being among the best classes in Arena. Just like how Warrior, historically, I always think of as one of the worst classes in Arena. Just because their hero power is such a weird kind of thing that... Whatever, and just generally their style of play didn't suit for it. But I'm probably wrong over the, past couple years. Maybe there's been one that's crazy, but overall, I think on average, throughout the first 5 or 6 years of the game, right, Warriors sucked and Paladins were often very good. You should let me disenchant this shit for like 1600 dust, because like a golden legendary equivalent, because I'm never gonna use that shit anyway. I mean, look, dude, I'm not gonna use them. Although this feels kind of stupid because this is exactly, wow, yeah, this is exactly what I use my whole collection thing to make, but I guess I'm not gonna play as priest, so it doesn't matter. We do things in such a fleeting sense. Like we'll do it like, wow, we commit 16,000 dust or 30,000 dust for this, and then we just move on. Like I'll play it for a couple episodes, which for me is only like an hour or 2 hours each. And it wasn't a bad deck, but I mean, notoriously, I've always hated Priest in this game as a playstyle, even though I don't mind Control and Control Warrior and stuff. I don't know about Rogue, like maybe I should leave some of these. Well, let's see what I can actually make, first of all. You have to have Lothab, even if he's not in Twist. Like, why wouldn't he be, though? Like, what about him? He's too strong for the Twist mode? Like, what kind of shit is that? Fine, let's see if we can do a Trog instead. Like, why would this not be in Twist mode? Some of them are, but not the Legendary. Or yeah, you could do it with Shaman, just because they have the one fucking Trog, that would justify making an anti-spell deck around that. Like, it's something as simple as that. The fact that you have Tyrantus as a Druid makes you feel like, wow, this has to do with the Elusive mechanic, but no class really has enough of them. Mages have a couple cool ones, especially that new spell they got, that summons like the 2 mechs or whatever that are from like Magister's Terrace. So none of these actually are worth doing except for that. Yeah, this won't be as fun actually. Maybe I should just hang on to my dust and decide later, but Lothab and this guy would definitely be 2 big ones. Can't be targeted, and I think probably Malfurion would be one of those as well. So you can use at least most of those, and even these I don't care to use because they do it to like your hero and other stuff. You can't use Sogoth, like it just doesn't feel right. Or maybe I should save some of those for the mage one. This is more so just about buffing than it is actually... I don't know, this feels kind of lackluster though, something's missing. Because other than that, I think I have most of them. So I'm missing Lothab, I'm missing the 2 Trogs, the 3/5 and the legendary guy, and then I'm missing the... Like, I can't use Malfurion either, are you kidding me? It's supposed to be a fun format, or maybe you can. Fuck off, dude. Doesn't mean I only have to play in the Twist mode. So I'm missing this, and then I'm missing Sogoth. So we'll have to consider all that for later. I guess that's fine. So let's see what we actually have in here. It's going to be all the anti-spell stuff and just a bunch of buffs, which you might question the value of, but this was always very fun to do and never very good. Even this I kind of question why I even have it. I guess it's technically like a buff, the fact that you're getting something back for them. Poison Seeds almost doesn't make sense here, especially because... Oh, I guess what I would do is I would play this and then do Poison Seeds, so you would at least get back double the... twice the treants, basically. And some of this stuff is in there just as a filler. Like, why is that really even there? Just because I don't have, like, enough good cards. Whatever, we get the same point across. And that Goop guy is actually quite good. This was obviously never in there because it's much newer. Or maybe I just never noticed him. How could I have not... The Boomsday Project is pretty fucking old. Huh. I'm surprised you've never seen this more over the course of the history of the game. Because it's so perfect for this. Like, you get 2 of them buffed up, and then it's actually pretty good. Yeah, we don't have any sort of round robin thing to try with this other than that. And mainly, we're partly doing this to flex the Cthulhu cosmetic thing. It's just the hero that I probably wouldn't use any other way, and that I wasted whatever amount of money on. But he looks very cool. You get like the whole Eye of Sauron vibe and everything, but it's just not fun because of the voice is kind of shitty. Yeah, look how much progress I made last time too, though. Or I might have played in Wild a little bit, but yeah, 3 stars worth. Twist rules, no legendaries, no problem. Which again, for this kind of sake, wouldn't it be ironic if this is something that people are actually using? Like, wow, some of the best things you can do without using legendaries or whatever in this format would be the anti-spell stuff, but I kind of doubt it. Yeah, there's not too many classes that really have a ton of stuff like that innately just stop your opponent from using spells. Like the way that blue works in Magic the Gathering and stuff like that. So this is our little hexproof thing, but it feels wrong to even say that because I never knew what hexproof was, but it was my favorite mechanic before I even had an official name for it, because it was always, you know, Jinzo spell canceller kind of stuff from... really, the mechanic is called force your opponent to play like a man, because you can't hide behind the shitty, you know, playing shit out of your hand. You just gotta play on the board. So we should have... oh, no, we don't even have Lorthamar in here, though. This is kind of a dumb way of doing it. Like, you're missing out on a lot of fun things that would work with it. So that's the whole beauty of coming back to doing these after such a long time, too. Is that you get to add in stuff that wasn't there, obviously, that kind of suits with it. So Lorthamar is perfect, or it almost makes it too good. So some of this in the early game value isn't very good, because it's just like trading in like a normal thing, but then it still prevents it from using a removal on it. So then when you play the one thing that isn't elusive or evasive, like the goop guy, it makes him so easy of a target for removal because they've been holding him back the whole game just for somebody that they can hope they can use it on. I never knew he had like the big tentacles like this on the... I guess I've never seen anybody else stupid enough probably to buy it or to use it, but this is almost kind of a little distracting and silly. Just like his voice is not particularly great either. So the problem can often be surviving the early game, because they'll just beat you on pure value, because the value here isn't that good. Even in the late game it's not that good, but sometimes they just can't deal with it, so maybe I'll save a lot of those other cards for when I do the same basic idea as a mage, where I do my anti-spell mage deck, which will be coming up probably at some point. I might do Paladin after this one, and then I'll probably do Mage, and then I'll probably... No, I wanted to do Shaman. I'll do Shaman, then I'll do Paladin, then I'll do probably Mage after that. Just so we can space these out, because they're basically very similar.
I see, but I do not believe.
They tried to make these somehow too cartoonish. Right, like they're not as badass, or I mean, it looks badass, I'll say that. You cannot beat the eye kind of moving around like that. Yeah, these 3D things are pretty good, the avatars that they've done, but see, now I have this epic play where I can't react to what he's doing at all. Even if I had poison seeds, it doesn't matter, because you would need like the old Starfall poison seeds combo, which is so expensive and inefficient. Like, I'm sure there's still a lot of better things you could do with this, just as far as like raw cards. Not even if they... And he actually kills everything on the board, including their hero, so he never loses the match with his last bit of strength, clearly. But... and that's how you know a cosmetic is cool, that even when it dies, you still get some satisfaction out of it. But no, it's like, I could have the Scarab thing, and that kind of corresponds with the AoE buff idea. Even though it's not anti-spell, you would like do the Scarabs, and then you could use all those buffs the same way you're trying to do on the elusive, evasive stuff. What was the other one that was kind of like Lorthamar that doubled the stats of something? You double the stats of everything in your hand. Oh, I was using that as a hunter, the Emerus, which was pretty shit value too. Your only desire is just you want to get stuff off in like a normal curve. Like you just give me a, and there are no like 3-cost evasive ones here, unless you somehow were hybrid with the fucking hunter with the bear shard thing. At some point in this game, they'll let you combine like every class together, and all that would let me do in like a twist mode or something, right? You can just combine all 9 classes or more than that now. Cards just to say like fuck it, I can use every evasive one together, which there really aren't that many of each class, but still I'd be doing it for that reason, not to make actually something broken. Yeah, this is like the whole hard commit philosophy that I sometimes use in decks and in general in card games. Like you just take one mechanic that you like or that you want to flesh out and just go hard with it. So that's the whole theme of the deck. It's just it's just about, you know, punishing them for using spells. You will pay the price for your lack of minions. That could be one of the titles I use for one of these. I just wish his voice was a little either more whispery or... No, I mean, that's the only way you think of Cthulhu, unless they must have brought Cthulhu back in WoW at some point later as another raid boss somehow, even though he was supposed to be canonically dead in vanilla. But basically, they probably made his voice more gruff or something. Because the reason why he sounded like that in vanilla is arguably the fact that he was so weak, right? He's in such a weakened state, which is why you're even able to challenge him in the first place at mere level 60. But it took on a creepy form too, how he's like whispering into your mind and stuff like that, so that you almost associate with him in a good way. It's like a character in a movie or something could be creepy, not because they actually mean to be, but they just sound that way. Like they have, or like in real life even, somebody could sound that way because they have like a breathing issue. So they're like constantly struggling to talk. So they're not talking in a creepy way because they're like that. It's just because they have trouble, some health condition or something. So in this case, he's actually wheezing and dying. But you have the nerve to think he sounds all scary or whatever.
Let evil take root.
Now, isn't this so satisfying if you're able to fucking... You still get the tramp back, which is not much compensation. Now he'll use some like fireball in the tram because he has nothing else to use it on. But that's always satisfying to see them. You have like a fetish with this deck when you see them like mouse over everything helplessly as they try to cast a spell. My old expression, like it's more important to make your opponent feel helpless than it is to actually defeat them. So that's what a lot of these decks are about. Like when you're not going to win a lot of games, but when you do win them, you make them feel so helpless and powerless before whatever mechanic it is that you're using here. Just like, okay, dude. It's not like we should be going against very good decks here for 2 reasons. Number 1, the rank, but number 2, the format. Yeah, this does kind of work, at least for what I'm trying to do. And see, like, why is this guy even in here? This is a very hodgepodge deck. I should just go face, too. Because clearly he's not going to have removal for these 3 anti-spell minions, none of which actually are elusive or evasive at this point. That's why they're called evasive, because they evade the very mechanic and theme that I'm trying to use here. Because one is a tram that I got from the death rattle, one is the stupid apple bomb that's in here just to like stall the game out a little bit. Again, doing all these little gimmick decks, I was not so ill prepared with most of them because a lot of them kind of do the work for you. You don't need a lot of dust to make the Renounced Darkness or Zinazari because they're just like, you know, you can complement them with card draw or at least Trailblazer or whatever, but you only really need the card. You just need Renounce and that does everything for you. With this, you kind of have to make it way more manual, and I just wasn't prepared. I must be playing against Illidan because I am not prepared, haha. So we'll do this one, I guess. I mean, if you can win like this, that's pretty satisfying. And yeah, really, the decks you're going against shouldn't be too crazy, but there'll be like one meta one that everybody's doing because this makes me think so much of the whole discussion in chess around like Fisher random and everything. Like, oh, the way that you can upset opening theory that everybody tryhards and studies so much is let's just change the position, let's just, you know, randomize it a little bit. So it's the same thing here. Like, no matter how much people metagame, they're not going to be ready for a twist mode like this. Or maybe there will be that one tryhard who anticipated what the twist mode was going to be and therefore would have been able to subvert it. But you know, it's a good way to mix up the meta in that way. Even in an MMO experience like Season of Discovery kind of does that. Everyone's so jaded, like, oh wow, Classic is so easy and we know the meta so well and everything's so stale, even though you've had decades worth of knowledge base to draw from. So it's just borrowed knowledge, and you would have never figured that stuff out yourself, or nobody knew that at the time. Not because people were just stupid back then, but because it takes time to figure these things out. But basically, it's a case where you know, I'd have to take a chance to see, like, do I do the buff? Because then you might have had ice block or something, or whatever. That would have still been enough, because the buff would have been only like 4 and 7. So yeah, we obviously wouldn't have gotten through that. So now, I mean, AoEs obviously work on these, but usually that's why the buffs are good too. Or at the time when I did this years ago, it would have made more sense. Like, you get this up to like a 5 health thing, so now Flame Strike or something won't work, or whatever AoEs they're going to do aren't going to work because it's out of the threshold, so it makes it so annoying for them. They can't use harder removal, they can't use AoE, so now they have to actually fight it on the board, which some decks just aren't going to be suited to do. But then some decks would just beat you on the board outright just because they had better value, period. Which is kind of dumb. Because yeah, you kind of pay a little bit of a price for the elusive effect that the statting wasn't as good as it could have been otherwise. But I mean, Gul'dan came with a certain amount of power creep too for the time. Like, a 6 mana 5/3 with Divine Shield and Rush and Evasive is not so bad at that time. And so by that token, maybe the Gul'dan expansion is my favorite. Not because I like Gul'dan at all, although I like to troll with him in that imp deck, just because it had to do with imps, even though otherwise... Now, it will actually do the effect, too. Right, which is kind of crazy. Oh, but it won't give you the other thing. Oh, come on, bro. Like, I wish he doesn't have Ice Block, but he doesn't, but it's still good enough to stop me. Because I would have had, like, exact lethal without it. So again, all it would take is a simple AoE to deal with this, and I have no way to actually punish spells directly in the way that I would have, like, Counterspell, or... You know, you would need some card that, like, lets you have multiple... That should be something they add at some point before this game dies out. A Mage Legendary that says, like, for the rest of the game, you could have unlimited number of secrets, even of the same kind. You could have, like, 4 counterspells out there somehow, through generated effects and stuff. So then whatever few spells they would try to get through, despite all your inability to let them do that, they wouldn't even be able to do that then too. Okay, that's going to be a little bit annoying. But if that's all you got... I mean, this guy played on the board for the most part. Or we could do it again, fuck it. That's quite a crazy synergistic thing that we have there. Let the evasion ones do the honor, but this guy is pretty good. Just period. Especially in a format like this. It's one of those kind of forgotten cards. I didn't realize it was that old, I guess. The Boomsday Project was like when Dr. Boom, the hero card, came out for the Warrior, I think. Makes me seem like such a noob too, because like look how little I've played some of these classes, but obviously over the course of different collections and everything. And I think it's very legitimate to make different accounts for that reason too. Like if you're doing some sort of challenge, like I want to do a free-to-play challenge. Not that I wasn't free-to-play in the first place anyway, but like, you know, you want to start a new collection with Death Knight and see what it's like if you do it that way. Look how it makes that get cut off too at the bottom.
My dreaming ends. Your nightmare begins.
It's like, it's such a badass line, but the way he says it is just not worthy of it. And even this is there for the AoE buff, which is more efficient than a lot of the other ones. It gives you at least the flexibility to do a 2 cost. So you should save the coin for the 4 cost. That's just there. That shows you how mana strapped we are sometimes with this, though. Where I feel like, you know, it's worth it to keep the 6 cost just because you're not going to have anything else otherwise. Yeah, this is the perfect definition of a mid-range sort of deck, though, where it doesn't have like a true win condition to it, which by today's standards they obviously would. Even aggro decks would, somehow stupidly. But that's like what those quests did. Like, oh, it's Karnas's Brood and it's an aggro deck, but that's the win condition. You get like 15 of these fuckers back to back and charge and all this kind of stuff. It just kind of feels power creep contrived, and that's still nothing compared to what you'd get today. But no, the idea of mid-range is like you have this mechanic that like you get stuff to stick, it can get buffed, it can get strong, and just finish you off there like on the board, but it's never going to last forever the way some of these control decks do or whatever. It's going to have its limits, and it's also too slow obviously to be aggro in any way. It's just very slow and predictable. Like all I'm gonna do is like play minions very slowly, and so if you can deal with them, I'm screwed. Or even if you can like just keep yourself alive. Yeah, anybody with like a couple of good AoEs would be good. Yeah, these twist formats do actually make some of these gimmicks a little more fun because they're not as bad as they normally would be. You were able to use Renounced Darkness in the one twist mod that I did when I was playing as a Warlock there a couple months back, but the problem with it was that you couldn't actually use it because it would keep giving you Death Knight and Demon Hunter and kept bugging out like crazy. So the one time it could potentially be truly fun or viable in some vague sense because it's not completely outclassed by the current meta, they don't even let you do that. No fun allowed. I could do the 4 cost, or I could just do this. I don't know. Now I'm gonna have to spend all this shit on just one minion, which defeats the whole AoE buff purpose. You know, getting these things to stick is gonna be very hard, despite that being their one purpose in existence. It's such a hipster thing too, like, oh, what's your favorite mechanic in Hearthstone? Is it Divine Shield? Is it Rush? Is it Charge? Even though Charge has pretty much gone extinct. No, it's the one that doesn't have a name, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, but most people call it Evasive or Elusive because some of these minions are obviously that. But so we could like double buff this, I guess, or I could just do it, or you know what, it might be better just to do that. We're playing this in such a stupid way where it's just very slow paced, and it almost makes some of these things not make sense. Like his hero power isn't to, I mean, I guess it is called only shapeshift, so he shapeshifts into an eyeball that shoots a laser beam at you, which he already is in that form. So, like, that has nothing to do with being a druid, like many of these things don't. It's almost like some of these should just be neutral. Like you can play as Cthulhu as any class because he's just a god and he can just, you know, manifest abilities in any kind he wants. Like what is Yogg-Saron? Like a mage because he uses all kind of, he has always to do with casting random spells and shit. Or a warlock because he's all about driving people crazy and whatever. It's just hard to put these guys in a category. Zoth is considered a warlock. It's like, oh yeah, of course, because he's evil and he uses dark magic. Like all these characters don't. Like Cthulhu doesn't do that in a manner of speaking. Like he's corrupting and using these whispers in your mind and everything. As much as people, you know, even the expansion was called Whispers of the Old Gods. The only one that actually whispered was Cthulhu, right? Or no, I think the Zoth would maybe do that, but Yogg was pretty fucking loud. He would just yell at you and talk shit to you the whole time and laugh super loudly and obnoxiously. Yeah, clearly our deck is too much for them to handle. This is one of the true old school classics, the little Spectral Knight here, the name dropper. Yeah, look how fun and interactive this is. You actually have to play stuff on the board and not just play the whole game out of your hand, which is not necessarily a style that I've never played myself in card games, but I just generally don't like it. Or I don't like how it becomes so overused and it becomes really irritating throughout the course of a game where it's just like, it becomes like too much, where at the beginning of a game there isn't even enough removal in the game, especially like here on a particular class, where you'd be able to get away with doing that, but then it turns into, now there's way enough removal where you can just spam it the whole game and not even have any minions in your deck, or there's too many other win conditions and ways to go about it. Yeah, this is a perfect example of how this deck would work if your opponent just goes AFK and doesn't do anything. But no, some of these actually aren't such bad value, just again, by today's standards, they wouldn't be that good, and that's why this twist mode could be actually kind of good for it. Let's see if we can get a matchup that's actually a little bit competitive here, where we get to see all the strengths and weaknesses of this come out. But I don't think there was anything I really wanted to craft that would be playable here, right? Like in the twist format. So maybe I'll just save my dust. But we're missing at least like 3 or 4 legendaries that would have been in here originally. Loatheb, because it obviously punishes them for using spells or stops them from using spells. So imagine how that would feel. Your deck is only minions that can't be targeted by spells. So it's like, oh, hooray, it's turn 7, and now I can use an AoE instead of targeting them directly. And then I play Loatheb and make it cost 12. So then what the fuck can you do about it? Like, it's such a troll. Like, even the one spell you're clinging to, you're not going to be able to play the one time you want to. So, like, I don't always have minions that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, but when I do, they still counter spells in some way. So whether it be the Trog who summons a 3/5, or whether it be the Loatheb or something, Malfurion would be in here just for the fun of it, just because whatever, those hero cards are fun. Or I guess we could use Goth for some other one too. And then, but that shows you how long ago I was using this. Is like it was around the time when Malfurion was there, or maybe even a little before it. But then there wouldn't have been enough of the evasive things in here, so I would have tried to really milk it for what little you would have had. It was like right around Frostlake's Jaina too that I remember using the mage one a lot. So a lot of the cards in there were to complement it. Like the Nerubian, there's like a 6 mana 5/5 Nerubian that makes all spells cost 2 more, which includes your own too, which doesn't work quite as well here because you have way too many spells. But or I even use that in a synergy with that one chick, the 9 cost chick who summons like a 5/5 dragon for every Alana or something, I think. So she summons like a 5/5 for every 5 cost spell you've cast, and so it would turn every spell into a 5 cost that wouldn't normally be one, and then that would count. Like counter spell is now a 5 cost. It was actually a good thing that it costs more. Okay, let's see what kind of crazy shit people are using, which so far it hasn't been too bad, but assuming that the ranks even matter anymore, you know, you wouldn't expect. Like, some of my most epic moments come at low ranks, but maybe because I almost exclusively play at low ranks, at least these days, because... But no, it feels like when you're at a high rank, it doesn't feel as epic, because everything happens in a predictable way. Whatever's going to happen is just going to be, oh, it's that same meta play that went his way this time, like almost a coin toss. You play the thing, then he plays the counter, like it's all very predictable. Whereas here, nobody knows what the hell we're doing, so... some crazy interaction might happen. This is like Fisher Random Hearthstone, where you're really trying to mix it up. Whizbang, do a tournament where everybody just has to use Whizbang, or everybody has to use Renounced Darkness and nothing else in their deck besides that or something. I would create all these kind of formats myself. Almost like a Tavern Brawl type of thing. It sounds like they would do, you know, in that, but... He's beating me on the board despite that being the one thing you're trying to do here. And Paladins wouldn't have that many AoEs anyway. The Elusive never bothered him anyway. So, I mean, just because Divine Shield can be annoying there, we may as well do it. Yeah, it shouldn't even show the Badlands arena, because... since we're in twist mode, it should show one of the old ones from that. Or that's why I like wild, because it'll always show you some of the random older ones. Right, like in standard, it shouldn't show you anything beyond a couple years past. So that's not a very efficient way, at least, to deal with that. But you are vulnerable to AoE. Like a quality Consecrate would wreck even some of the best setups with this. What else makes their spells cost more? I feel like those are the only ones, maybe. Like Loatheb and that some Nerubian that's like a 5/5. Okay, just do this for the raw value of it, which is not particularly great, although they did buff it from 5 to 6 health here at some point. That shows you how long it's been since I played some of these. Not that this was a staple of the deck. In fact, I can guarantee it wasn't in there, but it's just one of these cards to stall out the game to let me actually do what I'm trying to do. That shows you how there still aren't enough evasive things in the game. Or I guess that's only because of the format, though. There would be to fill out the deck pretty much if I was able to use some of the other ones. Yeah, see, sometimes less is more. Like, look how shitty these decks are and how little they can actually do. So 7-6 with Rush, which of course that is benefited in a buff perspective too. Really, that used to be way worse. I don't even remember. It would become like a 4-4, or it would become like a 4-6 or something. Now it becomes a 7-6, or yeah, like literally the Rush is better than the Taunt used to be. Like, what kind of dog shit is that? 4-9. They jacked that guy way up. Which is always a good indication of like, look how insane the power creep is gone. Look at him, dude. Bro thinks he's me. Now we can give him right back.
I see, but I do not believe.
The Draconid guy is good, but see, he's probably playing it just for raw value because maybe that's a good card in this mode, or who the fuck knows. Or it feels like maybe everybody I play at this level is a bot, but I guess there's still competitive matches, so it doesn't matter too much. Like, who would really be playing at this time of day, in this region, in this format, in bronze rank 7, assuming they have to be drawn from that, which is why they got rid of your ability to see their ranks, because it has nothing. Sometimes people think, oh, it's because you're hiding their name, but it doesn't matter. Even if you show their name, it doesn't show their rank. So whenever they don't have a rank, they must be a bot. Or they could just be drawing somebody from like a much higher rank because there's not enough players in this game. That's the only reason I can think of that they wouldn't show you their rank. Even Plants vs. Zombies Hero shows you their rank, even if it's way jacked out. At least you know how unfair of a matchup it is, or whatever. Magic shows it. Every other game shows it. It's almost like this game is hiding how dead it is. You could actually just copy that. Nah, it doesn't matter. But now you can copy both of these and you could buff them. Like, look how rarely I'm actually getting to buff stuff, though. That's the problem with this. So today will be sort of the foray into the twist thing, or maybe I'll emphasize that more so with Druid, but I do want to use some of those other cards. And then obviously once we get around to Mage, which might be like the grand finale class in this whole rotation that I'm doing, we'll do it again, but properly, like with all the other anti-spell things. And I gotta look over some of the newer cards that maybe would fit into it. Not just like other, you know, the spell that summons the 2 mana golem things or whatever that I was talking about, but like other things that would just like, even this, not that this is a newer card, but maybe just stuff I never used with it, or things that would kind of synergize with it pretty well. I mean, I may as well just do this, but that was not exactly the best use of it. I mean, sure, it seems like an expensive, inefficient card, but that can be crazy in so many decks. How can that be from the fucking Boomsday Project? Of course, that's one way you can bypass the whole not targeting stuff too, is with minion effects. The minion effects and AoEs can be your 2 weaknesses, which again, also just raw board power can be too.
Let evil take root.
Ah, yes, of course. He's role-playing as a druid. Let evil take root. That's why. Like, literally just because he has to do with bugs and stuff. Basically, the point is a lot of these lore characters are so much above and beyond whatever class you want to try to pigeonhole them into. Like, remember the part where a druid becomes a giant eyeball and shapeshifts into it and shoots a laser beam at you, or summons like a million bugs as pets, or maybe they do stuff like that now. Speaking of power creep, like WoW and all the crazy shit that you get over time with every expansion, but you know, it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Remember the part where Cthulhu becomes a bear and goes around and just slices everyone up with their claws in the middle of a fight? So there's nothing you could possibly get here that's going to help you. Not as exciting as like the Rexar hero power thing where we were getting all the...
Your courage will fail.
See, he says it too confidently. You got to say it all whispery. like where you could get the poisonous bat with Death Rattle and Rush, where it goes in and AoE poisons everybody. That was like a classic play from way back before. But I mean, you can still do it. It's just that was like a stunning moment where I was sure I had lost that game, and I was like, why am I not even quitting out? But then it somehow ends up being like that, where you get like some kind of crazy clutch thing, exactly what you need right when you need it, like Kazakus style. Yeah, let's see. That was a little bit of a one-sided matchup, but a lot of these are going to be.
My dreaming ends. Your nightmare begins.
I still can't believe how hard Heroes of the Storm actually failed with all the resources that I had in its favor. As much as I trash talk the shop system in some of those games, and like how contrived and everyone just does the same thing, I think that's part of the reason, the problem with the game. I only played it like once or something, but it like doesn't have a shop, or like the shop is shared or something like that. It almost feels like some of the stuff they did with some of the newer Mario parties, like where everybody rolls the dice together and you're in like a cart shared, so you're all moving in the same vehicle. So like nobody is moving on their own, which defeats the whole purpose of it. Like, yes, the RNG of the rolls could be annoying and stuff like that, although in the context of like Heroes of the Storm and like earning gold from like killing people and stuff, that's actually a core part of the game, where it's like, you know, you would, yeah, I love that he's so desperate to get rid of it that he's gonna whack it with his fucking dagger twice, and now you got to make him think twice and do it to that one. But no, it's like, you know, Mario Party letting you all roll together, so you're all in the same car. So if you roll a 10, everybody benefits from it, not just you. Or you still benefit from like where you land maybe, and everyone else doesn't, but from like your exact roll. But it's still stupid. Like, that's part of the whole feeling of whatever. I mean, I guess that's worth it just to keep this alive. So that's like trying to make it too fair to everyone and subvert the RNG element, but then it makes it feel like too homogenous, where the experience is not competitive enough. So it just feels like we're all just, everybody wins. We all get a participation trophy. So maybe it was the same thing in Heroes of the Storm, where everybody just shares the same gold pool. Everybody gets the same amount based on what the team is doing, not based on what you're doing. So it doesn't feel like satisfying enough, or it doesn't differentiate everybody's. I mean, he could kill it with that, but at least he has to keep whacking the stuff with his face. It doesn't make you feel good enough for like playing well or whatever, which maybe cuts down on toxicity. But no, the genre that I say definitely shouldn't have shops is like the Overwatch style hero shooter thing. So like the fact that Paladins had it, I really didn't like. And I never really even used it. I just let it auto purchase, but just philosophically, oh wow, look, he has a hard counter deck just for me, because that thing wouldn't be better in any other situation. Those little sheep plus fan of knives, the ultimate AoE combo for this format, probably. Maybe the best you can do. That would have been a lot better, actually, against a lot of things maybe coming up here. But no, this guy's kind of a beast too. Literally, haha. But some of these values are jacked out. I mean, I couldn't really explain why some of these things are in there, just because I don't have anything better, or I was too lazy to try to inject something in here that would just be good. I mean, I do have to wrap this up fairly quickly, and he is pretty low on health too, but a lot of people seem to be using that one. Maybe that's like a staple, one of the best 5/5s you can get in the game. We keep getting screwed out by not really getting anything we can play though, so now it's pretty much over. Unless he has just nothing to play and I get like the Draken and Taunt. I mean, I have a lot of good stuff in here that is for this stage in the game, but I keep getting clogged up by the buffs. You're trying to just get like actual big stuff you can play every turn. And I can't really blame this guy, like, oh, I keep getting him instead of that, because he has been really good, or that's arguably like a win condition card that you have whenever you can just clone everything once you have a good board, but I'm just not getting a good board. There's just nothing I can even do. I'm still not even dead though. 2, 4, 7, 9, 10, 11. He's giving me so much time here, but I don't have anything. I don't even have any AoE at all. Like, you know, I have the poison seeds, but that doesn't even help to destroy anything. Imagine losing to this. Cthulhu lost to this. A rogue using more trance than I am, even though it's my doing. Jesus, just getting stuff kind of out of order here a little bit. Yeah, that really is an efficient play. There's got to be some AoE spell that you have that would make him shoot laser beams at everybody. Like, that's his version of swipe. Or I guess he could be swiping you with the tentacles. You should physically show him do stuff like that too. Like, this is how the game should have been. Digital card space trade-off. The fact that you get to see, like, your character do an animation every time they do anything. They always put a good amount of work into the voice lines, but, you know, just everything should be a 3D portrait regardless, whether you spent money on it like a clown like me or not. It's my way of almost paying back to the game, because for the first many years of the game that I played, like from the closed beta, I never spent anything on it, right? I made a point to be free to play and all this kind of stuff, and then I finally, in the last couple of years, have felt like, okay, now I'll buy into it a little bit, just to try to keep the game from dying and keep it on life support, because it clearly needs the help, I'm sure. It's hard to even get an idea of how, like, they'll stop releasing the player numbers, they'll stop showing you your opponent's rank, they'll start using bots, like all these kind of signs that show you it's not doing as well. Otherwise they would just brag about it. Like the WoW sub numbers, they were happy to show it off when it was 12 million during like Wrath of the Lich King, but then, you know, now they won't even let you know. Or it'll be like more people are doing it for classic than they are for retail, which you wouldn't even really be able to tell the difference, but I guess just people who haven't bought the most recent expansion but still are subbed. A lot of people, I feel like, are just subbed and they forget about it. Like, I'm like that sometimes too, where like I'm just too lazy to undo it, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna want to play or not. Like, oh, maybe I'll finally do like episode 4 of my Season of Discovery series after like several months of, you know, it being out, because of how sporadically I do it. But then it's like, how can you even do that? Because I just stay subbed, so I don't have to bother. I'm too lazy, so then you're just wasting it. So it's not even that, oh, I'm saying sub to play it an irregular, sporadic, very short amount of time. I'm saying sub to not even play it at all, just for the possibility that I might want to do it, and I don't want to have to resub every time I go to do it, which is pretty much never. But no, that's the kind of series I just don't have time for, because I was almost doing it like what people call a RuneScape challenge or some kind of a Iron Man challenge. Like you go, I mean, I do a permadeath anyway, but like get from 1 to 60 without using any abilities and just do it kind of raw, right? Which is kind of ironic for Season of Discovery, because that's where they'd introduce more abilities. Like finally the one time a paladin, because that's what I even chose to play, and that was the whole joke that I made with the first title of the series, like introducing a new character class, a paladin with no abilities. So basically there's no difference, but in the context of that, there probably would be, like there's Crusader Strike and all these kind of other things. And so the point is that you finally would get abilities for a paladin that are actually activatable, and now you don't get to use them because you're choosing to do it in just your own little character build. But I kind of had a fun condition to it that would have been interesting to see. Like, you can use it in group, so if you do a dungeon, it's still permadeath, and you can bubble and hearth your way out of that shit if you're about to die, but only in a group. So on your own, you can't use any abilities at all, whereas in a group, you can use whatever you want, and so it kind of encourages you to do group content or whatever, but then that's the trade-off for putting yourself at risk. Like, you might wipe or get fucked over by the fact that you're in a group, too. Or even like PvP, like, oh, you can do battlegrounds where you're on a PvP server, but you can use your abilities in PvP, which is kind of hard to differentiate out in the world too, because, or maybe it wouldn't be like that. It would only be, you can do BGs, but then you can bubble hearth out, so you would never die in a BG, you would just desert, right? Like, you would have to do that. You would never wipe in a group. You would just get the fuck out of there and get banned from every group in the history of the server because you'll be known for doing that. But it's not my fault because I have a permadeath run to do. Does that mean this is a bot that's just not working properly, or they keep highlighting all your shit? Like, either we get destroyed or we beat somebody who's just literally AFK or just barely even does anything. So it doesn't even feel satisfying. Yeah, this was the OG classic, and then some of the other earliest ones was like the 4 mana 2/5 taunt mech thing, and then there was like the, I don't know, there really just weren't that many at the beginning of the game.
I see, but I do not believe.
But I love that. Like, Sargeras is a warlock. Every evil character is just a warlock, period. And especially demons. Like, every demon is a warlock. The Dreadlords are warlocks. Mal'Ganis is a warlock. Like, fuck it, dude. Nerazil should be a warlock, even though he was a shaman who turned, you know, effectively into a Death Knight. Terran Gorefiend. Like, they don't even have Gorefiend as a fucking Death Knight hero, do they? Of all the amazing ones they could have done, they would rather do Death Metal King and all these stupid ones. But they don't have Terran Gorefiend, the original OG Death Knight, who even has that line when you see him in Blind Temple, I was the first, you know. And then, obviously, Nerazil in the armor I always wanted, which they even tease you with in the little Arthas campaign thing that you do for when you go to get a Death Knight. But basically, they show you the armor, but they don't let you actually use it as a portrait. He's like talking to you and stuff. Yeah, this is kind of about as interactive as it would be anyway, I guess. But it's like the whole philosophy of permanence of plays. You don't want to just play stuff and have them always have an answer for it. So that's the whole fun of, you know, you have to use a mechanic like this just to get stuff to actually stick on the board, just to get them to actually do something.
I see, but I do not believe.
What the fuck is he doing, bro? But this is how inefficient it'll be. It'll take me this long to still deal with it. Or he's playing like some kind of Mechathune thing. How ironic. Or you wouldn't even be able to, though. This is a legendary. I don't know what expansions you can only use in this too. Right, like the twist mode usually restricts that, but I didn't even bother to pay attention to it. Because it doesn't matter. Like, I can use pretty much all the evasive ones in there.
Your courage will fail. Almost out of time.
You could just like blast the fucking other hero with your beams, but this is like some Yu-Gi-Oh! Sense of honor rule. Like, oh, I can send you to the Shadow Realm, but I'll only do it if I beat you in a card game first. Or it only makes sense when both duelists have a Millennium item. Like, the powers will cancel each other out, but once you beat them in a duel, then you get to overpower them with yours somehow. So it's like, that's the only logical way to explain it otherwise. Or there was no point in even doing that. Like, Bakura goes to just steal Yugi's Millennium Puzzle. It's like, yeah, why couldn't you just do that? Knock him out and take it. But then he uses the power of it to, whatever, transform and stop him from doing it. So it kind of shows you the game theory of that series that's very important. Like, why do we always have to play a card game? Because that's the only way to actually beat me, you know, get past the Millennium Items power or whatever the fuck. Which, again, it doesn't make sense in the context of people who don't have one. Because then it's like, oh, you beat me in a duel, but so what? It's just out of a sense of honor, I'm just going to let you take it or something. Or I'll just be so psychologically torn apart that I won't be able to fend for myself. Okay, dude, you succeeded in just wasting my time. Not a very fun, exciting game. But no, this shows you sort of the principle. It's more important to win the way you want, or to, you know, play the way you want, than it is to simply win. Like, anybody can just use a fucking meta deck and do the same shit over and over, which I guess I shouldn't be so jaded to that idea because it's still going to be with newer cards and different expansions. But at some point that starts to get annoying too, because if I had more time, I wouldn't be opposed to doing it. But it's just like, oh, you should always let the evasive one get the killing blow though, because he's just in there as a, literally as a filler. I almost want to do one more because that wasn't a very satisfying one to end off on. The guy just fucking AFKing out. But yeah, like you want to do it your way in a particular style that you find fun or interesting. Oh yeah, I think I did that Dr. Boom one too, or not Dr. Boom, the Iron Juggernaut one. I keep forgetting to mention that one when I say like what I have gone through. Like I did Zinazari, Explorer, and Goro, but I also did the Iron Juggernaut, I think around that time. Which that's like, I always say like that's my favorite card and that's my favorite deck. My favorite deck is probably the Iron Juggernaut. My favorite card is probably Renounced Darkness, because Renounced Darkness isn't much of a deck. Just the idea of like flipping the Iron Juggernaut with the Brewmasters and stuff, which again was never really all that good, but it's they kind of improved him a little bit with the Death Rattle and stuff. Okay, actual final matchup, fitting us against a mage, so we're gonna cuck all their spells here. You might think, why would we even keep the 5-cost one? But it might be better than whatever else we're gonna get, because there's just not that many. Yeah, look how he's forced to go face with it. That is a very satisfying animation of him taking damage. Now we could coin out the 4-cost, and I think I will. Lost to a little 1/2 dinky elemental though. This poisonous one can be annoying though if they feel like it's a, you know, it's turn 7 and they want to play a 7-cost. It's going to completely throw them off because they'll first have to summon something like this to deal with it. You know, it would be a simple ping or something else otherwise. So now we have a couple good 5-costs, but we're not going to be able to do anything next turn. There's just that weird thing of like a turn 3 play that you just don't have on for any of these evasive type of things. This just gives you some security on the board, I guess, because you had nothing else to do anyway. But yeah, the whole dream is if I can get some of this stuff to stick, then you'll have actually a good play. But Sleepy Dragon is in there for the same reason as some of these other ones. Or like he's there in lieu of Sogoth. He's there instead of like Lotheb. Not that it really fits with the same cost or anything, but just some of those cards that are missing because you can't use them in the twist mode. Wink wink, not because I can't afford them with my dust total and all that. Malfurion also is missing, which again has nothing to do with the anti-spell thing, just it feels kind of appropriate to have him in here. Yeah, look how powerless we make him feel, even if he's using a good deck and even if he's going to win. This guy was always pretty well statted if you think about it. A 5-mana 4/6 with the evasive mechanic, and this is from really the very beginning of Hearthstone. That's really not bad. You could make a taunt, or you could do the... Yeah, you should just do a taunt. This opens you up to some AoE capability, but I guess it's okay. So if everything survives, I can either copy them, or I can just do like these two together. Give you a little preamp protection, which is not very good, and that was something that was never really in here. So this isn't exactly the kind that I would use, but I guess it's not a bad extrapolation for this format. We finally given the satisfaction of actually using a spell too. I should do like a Super Bowl prediction to show like how smart I am, but not that I know. It seems like a lot of people are rooting against the Chiefs just because, well, there's like 2 reasons to do it, right? Because they've just been so successful in the last couple of years that everybody dislikes them because it's just kind of hip to do that, right? Just they've had too much success. So everyone likes to root for the underdog, but then also all the coverage of Taylor Swift makes everybody want to root against them too. But I would probably still say they would win just because of their experience or whatever. They've been in like 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, I think, which is pretty rare. It's not like with the NBA or something where that can happen a number of times. I think it's much less common in the NFL. And there's such an emphasis on sports betting now. There's so many ads for it and everything all the fucking time. It went from being illegal or whatever to now it's just everywhere. Okay, now you'll do this. You could have gotten rid of that, but what's he gonna do? Like an AoE? Oh, right, that's the only thing he could possibly ever do. This is at least good because it stalls the game out long enough where you'll get some of your sexy plays later off. I love that other people are using that too, but they're not really using it for the evasive mechanic as much as whatever, Divine Shield Rush and other aspects. I don't really care about the spell damage that much. Why are we never getting like our Draconids or anything? Maybe we only have like one of them in there, which would be kind of dumb. You know, when we're so starved on the evasive ones in the first place, it doesn't even make sense. Sometimes I would do that in the other one because you would just have too many. With all the buffs and stuff, you would have to settle for only having like one of some of them. We're not in a bad spot at all, but we just need something more. Something big. There we go. You ask and you receive. Now we could either buff it or we could do the Treant thing. This could be good. We're leaving this around for entirely too long, but this is the whole satisfaction. Like, I'd love to see how you can deal with this, and this is going to sit there behind cover for a while, unless you have an AoE, which you probably do. But like, just let it survive for one turn, and that'll be good enough. You can do this, you can buff them, or you could buff them and then do it. But no, because then you'll do it to that one too. Because if you were to buff them and do it, it would still translate the buff. Or wait, I don't even know if it does that. Because it says summon a well, like a copy of their inherent state or their current state. Or you should almost do this just because you have so much shit out there that you have some sort of protection against it now. But it's very unlikely that you should be able to clear this board. I'd be very impressed if you could. I mean, all it would take is like a flame strike and a couple hits. So that's what makes it so awkward. Even if you... No, but it would just be a flame strike. Because you have the 6 damage now. But normally you do 5, and then you'd still have to hit into these in an annoying way that you can't do with your hero power and stuff. So you're gonna lose to actual fucking Treants. Can't you tell that I'm a Druid? Doesn't this just look like a Druid to you? So of course. He takes up so much space on the fucking board with the tentacles. Look at that. It almost doesn't even make sense. Like, look how little space Jaina has between herself and her minions. Whereas here you get to just like shrink them down or push it up. Like, how did they even do that? No other hero has that much. I don't know how they exactly made that fit with the board. It like just makes your side of the board bigger somehow. So 7, you obviously have enough. It's always nice to get the kill with the fairy dragon of all things because he's really the OG. Yeah, I don't think I'm missing any evasive minions actually in here. Like, never mind the fact that you have let me see that we have 2 of those because I felt like I wasn't getting it nearly enough. We do have 2 of them, so that's just weird. Yeah, what other can't be targeted are we not using in Twist that we could use otherwise? I don't think there are any, so it kind of fits pretty perfectly. I like how some of these formats have corresponded to that. Like, I'm not doing this because of the Twist mode. I was going to do this anyway, like how I was doing Renounced Darkness when I did it, but it was at least playable in the Twist mode, so it was a kind of a nice overlap, right? Like, if I'm going to do it in Wild anyway, like I normally do, with all these kind of gimmick shitty themed decks that I do, I may as well just do it in Twist, because you'll probably have a better chance. Right, it can't be worse than what you'd see in Wild, because then you'll see actual top tier legend meta stuff. So this is going to be, you have all of these. Yeah, there's nothing really missing. What's the shaman one? I don't even remember. Yeah, like this is the kind of shit that you get. This is the only shaman elusive evasive minion in the history of the game. Like, what the fuck? You get like 1 or 2. The mage, in fact, has never gotten even a single one. Because it gets it only in the form of a spell. And that's only giving it to other things. The Bear Shark is kind of cool. Tyrantus is really the coolest one. And he didn't even have taunt before, and he was only a 12/12. But still, it's good to the... And even this is very good. And of course, I thought Death Knights might get some because of their emphasis on stuff like this. this whole mechanic, but they didn't give a single minion still. This one's pretty good. This one's okay. I don't really remember ever using those, though. I never did it as a warrior because there's no built-in synergy. Clearly, this AoE buff thing, it makes it so worthwhile, or like there's still not that many. And of course, this is a newer one, but I'm not even that impressed by it. Like, it's a 2-8, so who really cares? But it's good to kind of just slow the game down. Yeah, like that's maybe the first new one you've gotten in a super long time, at least neutral, because this is all Galakrond, or I mean Nax, Whispers of the Old God thing, Galakrond, whatever, Goblins versus Gnomes. Like, you get so few of these, which is part of the reason why it's sort of novel and almost, you know, cool to use it as a mechanic, because it's sort of rare and nobody really would commit to it. But why does it have to be that my favorite mechanic is that hard to find? Like, there aren't really that many hexproof minions in Magic either. There's not enough hexproof minions in fucking PvZ Heroes either. Alright, so we get a lot from this. I'll try to maybe keep building this, or I will at some point try to switch to... I'll try to switch to using the other thing. The, oh, this is because, like, Year of the Dragon, Chinese New Year thing. I'll try to switch to using the wild one at some point, though, just for the sake of it, but... It's like in the process of doing all these gimmick decks, like with the Hunter, I don't think I really fully got the experience out of it that I wanted. It wasn't enough to, but that shows you how bad the decks are. I did play it for a decent amount of time, like a whole month's worth of, you know, whatever, an hour a week even is not much, but it's enough to at least get you through, to be able to try to see at least once or twice what the fun of the mechanic is, whether it be Rexar or Karnasa or something. But I just wasn't able to, because it's just so shitty that when you would win, it's just because they're AFKing out or something stupid, or when you lose, it would be too quick and you wouldn't really get to see the full extent of your interaction that you want. Okay, see you tomorrow.